everybody come on in.
Holding on by a thread. It's just like us, holding on by a thread right now.
I'm a little worried about it.
Right there.
That might help. Yeah, smart, very good.
Now you're rocking out 2 radio stations. Okay.
If everybody could please move up and get as close as possible around here. Thank you.
If you guys want to just kind of scoot in a little bit, thank you very much.
That's okay.
Thank you. Yeah.
Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Congresswoman Kathy Castor. I'm joined by my colleague, Congressman Charlie Crist, and a lot of our federal public servants who are with us today to urge President Trump to end the shutdown, to pay our federal public servants, and to do so immediately. Congressman Crist and I are on our way back to Washington, D.C., where we will pass another set of bills that will reopen the government. They will be sent over to the United States Senate. They should take them up immediately, and President Trump should end his shutdown. We wanted a lot of the folks who take care of us every day to join us here today to explain in very personal terms what a shutdown means to them personally and what it means to our community and to this great country. The devastating impacts are growing. If President Trump does not act to open the government by the end of this week, a lot of our federal public servants will go without their second paycheck. Many of them are working. They are on the job. Imagine what that would mean to you if your boss told you you had to work, but you were not going to get paid. This cannot stand any longer. We're talking about our transportation security agents. We're talking about FBI agents, our customs and border officials. We're talking about the federal courts. This is having a trickle-down effect that is making us less safe, and it's a real black eye on America. There is no reason that the United States government should be closed for business. We have the capacity and the ability to negotiate and to get things done for the American people, but the bottom line is the government must be opened right away, and our federal public servants must be paid. I'll turn it over to my friend and colleague, Congressman Charlie Crist. Where are you?
Right here. Thank you very much, Kathy. I couldn't have said it any better. What we're here about today is something that I think is really kind of ridiculous. The notion that this is the 32nd day that our government has been shut down is unconscionable. As Kathy said very well, we have a lot of people, about 800,000 throughout the United States, that are not being paid or furloughed and are expected to carry out their duties. Just last week, I visited 2 Coast Guard stations in Pinellas County. Brave individuals who are still on the watch, still looking out for us, that are not being paid for it. And as Kathy indicated as well, this will be the second time at the end of this week, if this doesn't get resolved, that this will continue and they won't get a paycheck. We also know TSA, who works so hard here at Tampa International Airports and others throughout the country, are showing up, doing their job, keeping us safe, and not being paid to do it. That's just not right. It's not right for Americans. It's not right for these great federal workers. It's not right or just to their family members. And it does have a trickle-down effect to a lot more people that contract with the federal government and aren't even sure, whether those contracts are going to continue to exist. But we are joined by some very brave, wonderful people here behind us, and I look forward to hearing from them to share with you how this isn't just affecting them individually, but also their family members, their friends, their loved ones, It's important that people know these personal stories about the impact that this silliness is having. So without more, I think we're going to start out with the Pilots Association.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm an airline pilot. I'm not speaking on behalf of the Pilots Association as per se. Let me just, on the human side of things, I ride the employee bus here. And what sets me apart from any number of people on that employee bus is I get paid. I get in my car and I know I can put a tank of gas in to get to work the next day. And more every time I ride the bus with the workers that come here to the airport and are not getting paid, I see the stress on what they have to figure out if they can buy food or medicine or put gas in the tank to come back to work. And on the human factors side, it needs to be understood that this is a fabric knit together on trust and professionalism, not just airline pilots, but TSA workers and the air traffic controllers all function at a very high level of responsibility that we invest in them. We give them dignity because we trust our lives to them, and then we turn around and say, you're not worthy of a paycheck. We need them to function at a very high factor because our safety is at stake. We need them not to be distracted by things like, can I pay the rent or my kids' medical bills, or can I put gas in the car? We need them to be more focused now than ever. And part of that is not having the distractions of worrying about where their next paycheck's coming from. So I'd encourage all these people that continue to come to work to be here and understand that the level of dignity they occupy is valued by us and the traveling public. Thank you. I'll introduce the TSA representative.
Say your name. Say your name. Say your name.
Mark Weinkrantz.
Spell that.
WEINKRANTZ.
Mark with a K.
That is correct. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. I am Deborah Hanna. I am a TSO at MCO in Orlando. I'm also the local president of AFGE 556. I represent 2,000 officers that are AFGE members, but of course I represent all my other officers too that are struggling. This is ridiculous that we have to come to work without being paid. I have an officer that had to send her mom up north to a brother because her paycheck is not coming in and she cannot afford her mom's medication that she depends on. I've got officers who are already getting eviction notices because the complexes don't want to hear that you're not getting paid. We come to work every day to do our job because that's the oath that we took and that's our mission. And we work with FAA and everyone else in the airlines to try to do everything that we need to do, and it's not fair that we're working unpaid. So we're asking that President Trump, in his infinite wisdom, reopens the government and starts paying us, because we're going to do our job regardless. But it's hard when you have to worry about whether you're getting evicted to concentrate on your job, or whether you've got food to put on the table, or medication for your children, or gas, like was said, to come to work. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Rob Haas, and I represent the Tampa Air Traffic Controllers Association here in ATCA. Nobody should be under the illusion that it's business as usual right now for the aviation industry. Our controllers are showing up every single day. We're working 6-day work weeks without pay. My wife's actually an air traffic controller in that building right over there. We're working 6 days without a paycheck. I don't know what to tell my children right now when we go to work. I can't pay my children's daycare, can't pay my mortgage. I have a hard time getting gas in the car to get to work, as everybody said. But this prolonged government shutdown is really eroding the layers of safety that we have. People fly through this airport every day. We're in our busiest season that the Tampa airport has ever seen in the history. We're working hard without this issue. Add the level of stress that we have right now on top of the busiest season that Tampa Air Traffic Control has ever seen, and imagine the amount of stress that we take onto our jobs every single day. We're asking for the end of the shutdown to continue to pay us and put us back to work, please. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Anthony Finkley, and as my colleague Rob Haas, I'm also a FAA employee. I am on the technical operations side, and I'm here representing PASS, which is a professional aviation safety specialist. And as has been said several times already, the paychecks are important. We are the side of the house that are responsible for the safety of the flight from the start to the finish. The inspectors are highly important. I don't think anyone would want to fly without a certified safe plane or want to come in for a landing and the equipment on the airfield is not in working order. Although we've been coming to work every day as scheduled and yet without pay, it is to the point where we have employees that are about to start missing mortgage payments, about to miss car payments, have medical needs. They're the primary or the only breadwinners in the house. So it's time to come together and come up with some solutions, and let's get past this shutdown. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Richard Phillips. This is Don Barron. We're with the American Postal Workers Union in Tampa, Florida. We join and represent hundreds of thousands of postal workers and retirees throughout the nation in joining a grand alliance in supporting our federal co-workers. This is not just a shutdown. This is a lockout. And it's not just a lockout, it's a lock-in. Federal employees are being told to stay away from work and being denied the fruits of their labor, which is wages. They're also being told they must report to work as a lock-in and continue working, and again being denied the fruits of their labor. We, with the American Postal Workers Union, we have joined in marches up in Washington, D.C., and in local areas we also support our federal employees. We would ask that the President and our two senators join with some free-thinking and forward-thinking local legislators who have already passed some legislation to send us to the Senate, to send to President Trump. We would ask that, actually we would demand that we end this lockout, that we stop this shutdown and get this country going back in the fine order that it should be. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Joe Rojas. I work for the Bureau of Prisons. I also represent AFG Local 506 at FCC Coleman, which is America's largest federal prison in the country. On a daily basis, we have to work between 8 and 16 hours watching America's most dangerous criminals. I don't know how many of you will accept to work in a toxic environment in which we get assaulted, we get cocktails, which is urine and feces thrown at us on a daily basis, and not get paid for doing that. How is that American-like? That is un-American. And we implore that both Congress and the President get together and meet to end this shutdown. A lot of my colleagues are going through applying for second jobs after working 8 and 16 hours. I have colleagues that are going through cancer treatment. I have colleagues that are single parents that they got to decide whether to pull their child out of daycare. Now, you know, if you pull your child out of daycare, you go back on the waiting list. So these are real life issues, and we need to sit down and negotiate because we're affected. We're not a bargaining chip. We're not playing a game of chicken with our paychecks in our lives. And we implore both parties, sit down and negotiate because it's getting to a point where, like my colleague said, mortgages, credit card companies, your car payments, real life issues, and no one's talking about. So please, both parties, sit down and negotiate because I didn't sign up for this. I've been working for 24 years for the Bureau of Prisons, working in a toxic environment, and not to get paid and to never guarantee to go home. Remember, the criminals are the ones inside the prison that have the weapons. We don't. We have a can of pepper spray and a radio, and that's it. And not to pay us for the job we do for the public, keep society safe, is ridiculous. Thank you.
Well, on behalf of the folks I represent across the Tampa Bay area, I want to thank all of these federal public servants for keeping us safe, staying on the job despite not getting their paychecks. But I hear you loud and clear. It's completely untenable to be forced to come to work and not get paid. And now we're facing another deadline with a second missed paycheck on Friday. That is going to have a ripple effect across this community. It's not just the folks here. It's also the federal workers who inspect our food to make sure that it's safe. Republicans, prosecutors in the federal court system going after criminals. This is going to have a devastating impact the longer and longer it goes on. So we're on our way back to Washington. Again, we're going to pass a set of bills that are the Republican bills that were negotiated by Republicans and Democrats in the House and the Senate weeks ago. We're going to pass them again. I anticipate, just as in the two previous weeks, we will garner Republican support in the House of Representatives every time we've passed bills to reopen the government in the House. They have been bipartisan. Now it is time for Senator Mitch McConnell to quit his hiding and to come out and bring these bills up in the U.S. Senate and send them to President Trump. And the President must reopen this government. He must reopen it immediately. And I'll turn it over to Charlie, and then we'll take some questions.
Thank you very much. Well, I think we've all heard the stories and understand how this is impacting real people in a real way. And it does have to stop. And Kathy couldn't be more right. I mean, 9 times already, we House Democrats have voted to reopen the government. Bills that had already been passed. Bipartisan bills that had already been passed. And the Senate won't take it up. Senator McConnell will not take them up. And he should. And he should send them to President Trump, and he should sign them, and we should get this reopened. Thank you very much.
Now, it's not the bill that Congress passed, but there is a bill that's going to be on the Senate floor today. What are your thoughts on that, and whether or not that's going to move this ball forward at all?
That bill is simply political cover for the president, because he's trying to say, oh, I want to package this with helping our DREAM Act students, with our dreamers. He's the one that ripped the protections away from our dreamers. He's the one that ripped immigration protections away from our neighbors that came after the earthquake in Haiti and other countries. He is not, now, if he would go back to the bipartisan package of last year that had been negotiated between Democrats and Republicans to provide a path to citizenship for our neighbors who are protected temporarily and our DREAM Act students, that would be a meaningful way to negotiate. But it's simply political cover, and unfortunately that's not going to get the government open immediately. We should open the government immediately. Why are we holding up prosecutors, food safety, all the folks who keep us safe? We should reopen the government, and then we have plenty of time to negotiate on fine point details.
What are your Republican colleagues saying on the House side as far as these bills that you keep sending back to the Senate for the government to be reopened? How many of your Republican colleagues have joined you in those votes? And I open that to you.
Sure, I don't know exactly the number, but almost every time one of these bills comes back up for an opportunity to vote on it, we get more Republican support each time. And I think you're going to continue to see that. They're frustrated too. They would like to be able to make these people get their paychecks again, just as much as we do. And so that's why it's incumbent upon Senator McConnell to let these bills come up on the Senate side, because I'm sure there'll be Republican support on the Senate side too, and then we can send it to the president's desk and end this thing.
Why do you think the president is digging in the way he is over this issue and over the wall specifically? He seems very adamant about his stance.
He does, and far be it for me to get inside the mind of President Trump and understand why he's doing what he's doing. One would assume it's because of safety, but we all care about safety, But, we can walk and chew gum at the same time, too. As Kathy has said, we ought to reopen the government. And then we can have a discussion about border security, that it will be healthy, and I think would be productive. But it's not productive to hold these people hostage in the meantime. You don't have to do that. That's cruel. That's unusual. And it's not right for the American people.
Just to follow up on the Senate bill, it obviously needs 60 votes. A lot of people think that that's not going to happen. But if it does, would you both be willing to debate it on the floor and possibly propose some amendments to make it a little bit more palatable to get the government reopened?
Well, if it got 60 votes, that would be pretty incredible. And if that does happen, I think there may be an opportunity to make it better, make it real, as Kathy has indicated, and have some real meaning in it. But let's see. We'll find out later.
If the president did go back to the deal that he negotiated with Senator Maryland last year, is that something that would potentially be palatable to the Democratic Congress?
You know, it's interesting, during, over the past few months, conversations I've had with Republican members, they would, if there is a path to citizenship for dreamers and we can work out details of real border security, not a monument to ego, but something that is effective and smart, that would be, yes, we could, I would predict that would pass. The problem has been, the president's been all over the map on this. One day he's for that deal, the next day, no, he's calling people names, then he's shutting down the government, and then he's saying, well, what about this? And it's very difficult to negotiate with someone that is so unpredictable, but it's incumbent upon us to keep at it, and that's why we feel, okay, we will continue to pass these bills to reopen the government. They will be bipartisan in the House. The Senate should take them up and send them to the president, reopen the government, and put our federal public servants back to work, and for goodness sake, pay them while they're working.
Ms. Castor, what message does this send to the rest of the world that America can't come together to pay their critical employees and can't really come together as leaders to make this happen?
Charlie, I think you'd agree. There is no other country on the planet that simply shuts down its government. I mean, it's embarrassing. We have our disagreements here in this beautiful democracy, but why do you inflict economic damage and economic pain on public servants, the folks who are keeping us safe every day? It's an unfortunate testament to where we are and the lack of leadership coming out of the White House.
Does it make us more vulnerable to terrorism on many different fronts?
You bet it does. This
about
weakens our national security when you're not paying your FBI agents, when you're telling prosecutors in federal court prosecuting criminals they're not going to get paid, when air traffic controllers who are keeping us safe in the skies are worried about food on the table and paying the mortgage. You heard from the Bureau of Prisons representative. I mean, the list goes on and on and on, and it simply must stop, and it's got to stop right this week.
Are the two of you still getting paid?
Yes.
I'm in the business of having everyone paid. Everyone paid. Notwithstanding that, though, I do intend to make a charitable contribution to the Crisis Center of Tampa Bay. Here's another impact of the shutdown. Their sexual assault crisis unit, the forensic unit, is not getting the funds that they need because that's funded by a federal grant. So that cannot go on, and the state attorney and Andrew Warren and Sheriff Chronister are talking about now having Hillsborough County pick up bridge funding to cover that so that sexual assault victims will be taken care of in time of crisis.
Isn't it true that even if you were to say, hey, I'm not going to take my paycheck, it's not like the government could just say, okay, we'll take that money and put it over here to pay some workers? How does that work?
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure either.
All right, I guess
Thank you very much. And thank all of you for being with us today. God bless you. And thank you for coming out.